This Shabbos starts the Tkufa, the Dalet Parshias. The Dalet Parshias, Purim, Pesach have Yotzros. To be a little bit more familiar, to know where, there is Yotzros that everybody knows in Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Chazar Sashatz, these pieces, some say less, some say more, but these Yotzros. These Yotzros starting now throughout the whole Tkufa, Dalet Parshias, Purim, Kroivitz. Yotzros, we'll see in a minute who is Machaber the Yotzros, but these Yotzros that are relevant during Birchas Kriya Shema, the Birchas Yotzer HaMa'oros, these different parts, and the truth is even earlier, there's one place that we say in Yotzros by Nishmas. By Nishmas, one place Samchas Torah, the Shari Tshuva brings. What we call Yotzros is really the piyutim that we say, that is to say by the Birchas Yotzer HaMa'oros. But there's a piece that said Samchas Torah by Nishmas, that's called Nishmas. In the Birchas Yotzer HaMa'oros, these different pieces of Yotzros that are said throughout Birchas Yotzer HaMa'oros. Now it's important to note, not every Yom Tif and every of the Dalet Parshas and Purim, it's said by all the places, but what I'm saying now, I'm listing out as the different places where Yotzros are said. Nishmas throughout the Birchas Yotzer HaMa'oros, in the Havas Olam Hava Rabbah, that's called Ava, these in certain Yom Tovim, these pieces over there, Zulas, Geula, that's between Kriya Shema and Shemay Esrei. Actually, by Geula, the famous Yom Li'abasha that sang by a bris is said on Shvi Shal Pesach, before Gal Yisrael. And the Pri Megadim says, we say it also, we sing it by a bris. Then these by Chazar Sashatz, which what we call Yotzros, after when the Chazan starts Chazar Sashatz, and then these Piyutim, we call it Yotzros, it's Kroivitz. Purim, it's more known, when you say piece by piece throughout Shemay Esrei as Kroivitz, but Kroivitz, the Avudraham from the Rishonim says, Kroivitz is Kollel Shiur v'Yeshua b'Holet Tzadikim. The Piyutim, the Yotzros, is Kollel is giving Haidah, it's Tefillah, it's Bakashas to Rabbi Shalom. And then interesting, by Musaf, this Shabbos, Shkolam, and Achodesh, there's also Piyutim, Yotzros said by Musaf as well also. Now before going through if it's said, if it's not said, what the questions are about it, let's first see the source, the makor of saying Yotzros. So some people may think that could be, it's something Hasidish, by the Hasidim a lot say, which Chas Hashem, there's nothing wrong, but it's like a later minute to say Yotzros. So it's important to note that the Yotzros, ubefrat the Dalet Parshias, was written by the Tana Rabbi Eliezer Kaller. He didn't just write it as a piyut that we have it and we put it in by davening. He wrote it, the Yotzros, to be said where it's put in the Siddur to be said. To say it's throughout Birchas Kriya Shema and throughout and Chazar Sashatz. Rabbi Eliezer Kaller. Interesting in the Rishonim, there's a discussion who this Rabbi Eliezer HaKaller is. Tosfos and Chagiga, as well as the Rosh and Brachas, they both say that this Rabbi Eliezer HaKaller is Rabbi Eliezer bar Shimon. Which bar Shimon? Rabbi Eliezer bar Shimon bar Yochai. The Rashba says that it's Rabbi Eliezer ben Aroch. But Al Kapanim, it's from the Tanoim. There are also Yotzros that are from Rishonim. For an example, the Yotzros of Shabbos HaGadol, a Yotzros that goes through the halachas of Pesach. The Yotzros of Shabbos HaGadol, one of them is Rabbi Yosef Toiv Ilaim. Tosfos and Psachim brings him, Tosfos Daf Kuf Tez Vav, Daf Kuf Tez Zayin, Divrei Maschal Tagri. Tosfos says, V'chein asa arav Rabbi Yosef b'sidroi. On the side, they explain it's what you taka see in the Yotzros for Shabbos HaGadol. Charoisa zeichel. It's in the Yotzros. You see it over there. And that shtickle he wrote. Al Kaponim, the Yotzros that we say, Dalet Parshias, The Alaparshis was written and put in to be said by the Tanner Rabbi Eliezer HaKaler and others by the Rishonim. Now, Lamaisa, even though it's Taka Huskan, it was written Taka by the Tana and by Rishonim, there are questions about the saying of Yotzros. There are shilas. Now, one has to understand, even though we have these kashas, it's not that the pshat is it's a kasha on a minig. Even on a minig also, like we mentioned in a previous year, whether if it was the Haftorah of Mishpat going backwards, Rabbi Chaim Kanevsky said, that's the minig, you don't change the minig. Kal v'chomer, when it was written by a Tana, so it's taka questions, but Al Kapanim, with the Tana wrote it and put it in davening. The first shaila is the Gemara in Brachas. The Gemara in Brachas says, Daf Yud Aleph, B'mokim she'amru lekatzer, eino rishoy laharach. When Chazal were masakin a bracha, a short bracha, you can't make a bracha longer. So here, you're making the bracha longer, whether if it's Birchas Yotzer HaMo'iris, you're making it longer because you're putting in Yotzros. Whether if it's Chazaras HaShatz, you're putting in long Yotzros now, Shabbos Shkolim, you're making it longer. But Makom She'amru L'Katzer, Ein Rishoy L'Haruch, you can't make the bracha longer. So how could we add in a regular week, a regular day, you have the Birchas Yotzer HaMo'iris, a Hava Rabbah, Havas Olam, the size that it is, and here we're sticking in, we're putting in Yotzros. How can you put in Yotzros? You're adding on, you're making it longer, bigger, Ein Rishoy L'Harach. So for this, the answer given, this is all discussion in the Rishonim, the early Achronim, the Tur, the Beis Yosef. The answer given to this is that the din of B'mokim she'amru l'katzer ein rishoy laharach is talking about that if you have a bracha that starts with a baruch but doesn't end with a baruch, you can add on a baruch at the end. But you could, mitzad the B'mokim she'amru, you would be able to add in content in the bracha. You just can't say a baruch at the end. You can't, if there's no baruch in the beginning, you can't add the baruch. So that would be the teretz on question number one. How could you say Yotzros? You're adding in Yotzros into a bracha. So for this, as we said, it's only a baruch. However, there's a second kasha. The second question asked, the Gemara in Brachas Daf Mem Amud Beis, the Gemara says, Kol HaMashana Mimatbeah Shetavu Chachamim, you're not Yotzi Yidei Chayvasai. In other words, there's another din. The Chachamim were koveya how the bracha should look. You can't come and change the words. You can't change. This Torah about when you add in a yalav a yavai, what's the gather over there? But you can't just change around. When the Chacham made a bracha, you can't change it around. Here, by adding into before Goal Yisrael, in Shemay Nesra, we're adding into Yotzros, you're changing Mimatbeya Shetavu Chachamim. The third shaila asked on the takana, we'll call it more than a minig, of saying Yotzros, is that it's a hefsek. It's a hefsek. It's a hefsek. In the middle of Shemay Nesrei, just to bring it out, the middle of Shemay Nesrei, you're starting to speak about Shkolim, about Zachar, about Pesach. It's a hefsek. So for Shemay Esrei, these, again, like we mentioned before very clearly, these overall two places where Yotzros is put. We call it Yotzros, it's different names, but the piyutim are put in two different places like I began. One location is throughout the Birchas Kriya Shema, Lefaneo Lachreo Yotzer HaMo'iris, Havas Olam, Goal Yisrael. That's one place that we put Yotzros. And then there's another place in Shemay Nesrei. And we're asking now, question number 3, how could you put in these Yotzros L'chayretz HaHefsek? Bizmanenu, that we're not Yotzeh Shemay Nesrei with Chazaras HaShatz, it's easier to understand to say Yotzros by Chazar Sashatz, and Tzaka Brol like that, the Shara Ephraim explains this Yesod, that it's easier to say Yotzros during Chazar Sashatz than before Shemoneh Esrei, which, by the way, that's, I can't say the minig by most, but by a lot that do say Yotzros, it's way more common to say Yotzros by Chazar Sashatz as opposed to by Birchas Kriya Shema. I grew up in Lakewood, davening in Lakewood Yeshiva. They say Yotzros, it's an interesting story, maybe we'll get to it later on, exactly where they say, why they say, but Be'ikr, they say Dalet Parshas, but they say it only by Chazar Sashatz, not by the Birchas Kriya Shema. Birchas Kriya Shema, says the Shara Ephraim, it's a kasha because it's more of a hefsek as opposed to Chazar Sashatz. You're not saying in the middle of your Shemoneh Esrei, Chazar Sashatz. He even brings out, the Torah speaks about Yotzros in two different places. In Siman Samaches, in Birchas Kriya Shema. Over there, the Torah has an arichas, and he's bothered, he questions the saying of the Yotzros, as opposed to in Siman Kuf Yud Beis, Lagabi Chazar Sashatz, over there he brings the minhag to say Yotzros. Says the Shara Ephraim, not the Sharei Ephraim, the Shara Ephraim, the grandfather of the Chacham Tzvi. He says because it's easier to understand to say Yotzros by Chazar Sashatz more than to say by Birchas Kriya Shema. And he says that even by Chazar Sashatz that we do say, we begin off Misoit Chachamim and Avoinim. That says Lamaisa, even Chazar Sashatz, it's not so simple. We have kashas. We're going to continue on some more questions. We're saying the Yotzros Misoit Chachamim and Avoinim because the Chachamim were masakin to say Yotzros. Even though we just mentioned that it's, let's call it, easier to understand to say Yotzros by Chazar Sashatz, there's a question by Chazar Sashatz in particular, how do we say Yotzros? Another Gemara, the Gemara in Brachas, a third Gemara, the Gemara Daf Lamed Daled, the Gemara says, Al Yishal Adam Tzrachov, when a person davens Shemoneh Esrei, a person is not supposed to ask for his own tzrachim, not by Gimel Rishonis, the first three brachas, v'loi b'Gimel Achronos. So the question is, when you say Yotzros, you take a look in the Yotzros, it's Tfilis, it's Bakashos. So how do we say Yotzros? Here the question is the opposite. By Birchas Kriya Shema, we have a kasha of hefsek, but okay, you put it in, but by these a particular din, the Gemara says by Chazar Sashatz, Al Yishal Adam Tzrochov, you're not supposed to ask. So how can you say Yotzros? So Tosfos asks a question. Tosfos asks a shaila, and Tosfos says that you can ask tzrachim hani mili tzarchei yochid, but a tefillah l'rabim you could. So the Yotzros is about koshas the rabim. Hainu l'yochid avol tzarchei rabim. Tosfos says you could. So the tefillah, the bakasha, and the Yotzros is a tzarchei rabim. The meili you could. So we have over here a few questions. All these questions are interesting because the Tanner Rabbi Eliezer HaKaler was mesaken to say Yotzros. Here you have a question. It's a hefsek. And other questions. There's one more, let's call, reason opposing saying Yotzros. But this reason is a little bit more easier to understand, despite the takon of the Tanner Rabbi Eliezer HaKaler. Says the Tur that being that in today's day and age, during Yotzros, a lot of people shmooze, and that's for sure a hefsek, and that's disrespectful to the davening, that's a reason not to say Yotzros. So this is not saying a kasha on the takana of Rabbi Eliezer HaKaler. Rabbi Eliezer HaKaler was masakin Yotzros. However, people talk, and people are not saying Yotzros, and that's for sure a hefsek. That's a reason not to say.
Similar to that throughout davening on a regular, you're going to say we still got half a daven?
Very good. So we're going to get to it shortly, Be'ez Hashem. Before tomorrow morning you go up to the bima, and when they're about to say Yotzros, you give a clap, let's stop it. I want to get to it in a minute. But first, Atkan, the past couple of minutes, explaining, maybe even call it the justifying, the Mekaymes HaKdoshim that don't say Yotzros. There can be many kashas. Even though these many kashas, the Torah himself says, Be'etzem, he's bothered Be'ikah with this last reason, but says the Torah, Omnam, Noyagim B'chol HaMakaymes Loimar Behem Kroivitz, Lashon HaTorah. Even though these kashas, the minig is B'chol HaMakaymes to say Kroivitz, to say Yotzros. Though the Bais Yosef says the Bais Yosef on this Torah, Zehu Bizmanoi of the Torah. Avu Bizman Hazeh Ein Noyagim Kain. The minig is not to. But Al Kaponim, let's have it clear. Yotzros is not just a thing that Ki'ilu Zmira Shabbos, there was different Kadmoinim that wrote Pizmoinim, and we sing that on Shabbos. Yotzros is not piyutim that were written and we plugged it into davening. It was written by Tana, by Rishonim, and they wrote it to be said during davening. There are questions. Says the Torah, the minig b'chol HaMakaymes is to say it. I'm going to share with you a list of Rishonim that also say, justify and say to say it. Again, the places that don't say it, we saw clearly there are questions. And we're going to soon get to it, that if it's a place that says not to change. But the Rishonim that say to say it, the Rosh and Brachas brings to say it, the Rashba and Shuvas, minig hazeh poshat beroiv HaMakaymes. The Torah says, b'chol HaMakaymes, beroiv HaMakaymes, Rabbeinu Tam, the Sheboli Aleket brings a long list of Rishonim that say to say Yotzros. Again, like we mentioned before, there are different places, different parts, different chalakim of Yotzros. You take a look in the Sidurim Hamafoirish, they have way more Yotzros. These Yotzros between Pesach and Shavuos. There's some that said Yotzros on the Shabbos of Yisroi, the Shabbos of Kriya Shema, the Shabbos of Tzitzis. But Al Kaponim, the Rishonim say the minig is to say. The Sefer Hasidim says not to change from where you do say to you don't say, to switch it around. But they say to say Yotzros. Lamaisa, the minig Bizman Hazeh, or let's call it more later, not just in the Rishonim, rather that way. A lot of places by the Chassidim they say, but it's not just Chassidish. The Goyen said Yotzros. Not only he said it, it says in Ma'aser Rav, he said it Benigun. He said Yotzros even before Shemoneh Esrei as well also. Different parts in Shvi Shal Pesach, it says which Yotzros he said. He said Yotzros throughout. The Netziv brings, that was the minig in the Lashon Yeshiva. Rabbi Yeruchim, the Mashgiach, in the Mir, says V'chein Noyagim to say Yotzros. To say Be'etzem, not to say, a place that doesn't say is really a shtickle of kasha. Why don't you say Rabbi Eliezer Kala was masakin? Good, so we had kashas to be miyashiv. Stamazay on the note of Yotzros, the Briskerov brought different rayas from Yotzros. We've mentioned it over the years in the Shurim. One example, in the Yotzros of the Shira, the Briskerov brings a raya to the Shaila. We spoke about it here a couple of years ago. If the pasuk kivos sus paroi, you're going to say it this morning, or if you said it already this morning, you'll say it tomorrow. Is it a chelik of the Shira or not? So the Briskerov says, I have a raya, because you take a look in the Yotzros, these are on every part of the Shira, including Kivasos Pari. Zetzachos Kivasos Pari is a part of the Shira. The Chazon Ish has a shtickle in Igros to explain the Yotzros, one piece of the Yotzros of this week of Shabbos Shkolim. Which, by the way, the Yotzros, it's written hard to understand. And the Shar Ephraim, over there in the next shtickle, says the reason why it was written hard to understand is so that the Goyim don't take the Yotzros for the Avodah Zarah. Interesting. But it's written hard, and if you're in a shul that says, and if you're going to say, it might be kedai to invest in getting a Yotzros Hamavoyer, I got it, just to look a little bit, it makes it easier, explains. Havada, to learn before, to learn through the Yotzros would be moiridik, but even during, a little bit to understand a little the words. Akapanim, that's on the note of Yotzros. The Goyim said Yotzros, Dalet Parshiyas. However, the Goyim didn't say the Yotzros during Chazar Sashatz, he said it after Chazar Sashatz. It's interesting, there are also these Minhagim Lakan. I think the Goyim said it after Chazar Sashatz, before Kaddish, and some have the minig after Kaddish, or vice versa, but Al Kapanim not during Chazar Sashatz. A lot of places that say it, the Baal Tefillah starts Chazar Sashatz, and then it's basically the first and second bracha. And therefore, because it wasn't said, the Goyim didn't say it during Chazar Sashatz, Kedusha, he didn't say. Because Kedusha leads in the Yotzros into Kedusha. But if you say it at the end of Shemoneh Esrei, you don't say V'chein l'chasal Kedusha. Why didn't he say it? Because of Hefsek, like we had one of the questions before, not to say it because of Hefsek. The interesting thing is that even though when it came to Dalet Parshiyas now these weeks, the Goyim said it, but the Goyim said it at the end of Shemoneh Esrei, the end of Chazar Sashatz, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Geshem and Tal, Birchas Geshem, Birchas Tal, the piyutim that we say, and Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, Nasana Toikev, the piyutim that are written, there he did say it during Chazar Sashatz. So the shaila is, what's the difference if it's a hefsek for these weeks to say it at the end of Shemoneh Esrei? So why Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, Geshem and Tal to say it during Chazar Sashatz? If it's a hefsek throughout. So one teretz given on this shaila is the piyutim for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, Geshem and Tal, are me'enat tefillah. To say it's Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, the piyutim we put in are piyutim that are mamlech the Rabbeinu Shalom. It's connected to the davening. Geshem and Tal, the piyutim that we put in, are also connected to the davening. We're going to say now, Mashav Ruach HaMoreh Geshem. So those piyutim are connected to the davening. Masha Enkein Dalet Parshiyas, for an example. You'll take a look tomorrow in the Yotzros. The Yotzros has nothing to do with Birchas Av, not nothing, but it's not with Birchas Avos Machaya Mesim. It's Hilchas Shkolim, Ba'or Panecha, the Bais Hamikdash. So it's not connected to the davening. Zachar, Yotzros speak about Amalek. The Yotzros of Pesach, is it connected to the first two brachas of Shemoneh Esrei? It speaks about Pesach, about Shavuos, about Sukkos, about Matan Torah. Therefore, those Yotzros that the Goyen said, he said it after Shemoneh Esrei. Masha Enki and Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, like we all know, we all say Yotzros Shemoneh Esrei of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and that's during Chazar Sashatz. Another teretz given, but at least for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, is we anyways make a hefsek. What's the hefsek Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? We say Zachreinu, Micha Moicha. So we're already anyways putting into Shemoneh Esrei. Does it mean already we're being Meshanim Atei Shetav Chachamim? Does it mean we're anyways making a hefsek? But we're already putting in so would be that we put in the other Yotzros, the Yotzros as well. Answers Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur.
What's Pshat you actually put it in? Taisa says because it's for the tzibur. So the Pita for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is also for the tzibur, it's not for personal.
The emes is, it's all very good. Taisa says why all the Yotzros every single time could go in. You take a look, every single Yotzros that we say has part of it, Bakashas asking for the rebuilding of the Bais Medrash. That's Bakashas Arab. It's Enochanami, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. You're right. While saying the Yotzros, but we're being Mamluch, the Eivish, it's a Bakashas Arab. It's Bakashas Arab.
This is all the Yotzros, right? I mean, Shemoneh Esrei and non-Shemoneh. This is all.
So here we're talking about in Yotzros of Chazar Sashatz. The question is, why part of it did the Goyen say at the end and part of it not?
Meaning, what I meant was the Yotzros, the fact that they're a field Rabbim, it's for the Rabbim. It's all Yotzros, or it's specifically Shemoneh Esrei?
The reason why specifically Shemoneh Esrei is because the whole question that Taisus asks is that you're not supposed to put in a Tfilas Yachid in the first three and last three brachas of Shemoneh Esrei. So over there, the kasha is how do you say Yotzros? Only a question on Chazar Sashatz. The interesting question, we're just about almost at the end. We've been speaking about the Yotzros, and it's about Kashas Rabbim, and how it comes in. The Minchas Aloza asks the following, the Minkat Rebbe and Shuvas, specifically on this Shabbos Shkolem, how does it come into Shemoneh Esrei? We understand other Yotzros, it's about Kashas Arabim, we understand. Shkolem, as well as also Yotzros L'Shabbos HaGadol, is Pashat Halachas. You take a look in Yotzros L'Shabbos HaGadol, that's why we'll get to it, Be'ez Hashem, this year that Shabbos HaGadol, Erev Pesach is Shabbos, so some say the Yotzros the Shabbos before because it goes through all the halachas. And Erev Pesach already, it's too late to go through all the halachas. But I'll come on to go through all the halachas. The shaila is, you want to sit down and say you should have an extra seder to go through the halachas, I understand. But to sit down to learn in the middle of Chazar Sashatz, to learn Hilchas Shkolem, and to learn Hilchas Pesach, we take a learn Hilchas Pesach. The Rav gets up and gives a Shabbos HaGadol drasha, but how does it come in to Chazar Sashatz? No, you hear the shaila. How does Yotzros of this Shabbos HaGadol come in? The Chelek being mispal to the Rabbi Shalom, I understand, but the Chelek that says the halachas, where does it come into Chazar Sashatz? This is the kasha that the Minchas Aloza, the Minkat Rebbe asks. Rabbi Yeruchim, the Mashkiach and the Mir, answers this question. I think it's a Parshas Mishpatim, in Das Torah. He asks this question. But the emes is he starts with the general question that we said earlier. How could you say Yotzros? It's a hefsek. B'chlal, it's a hefsek. You're talking about Ata Gibor. How does it come? It's a hefsek. Rosh Hashanah, Shemoneh Esrei, how does it come in? It's a hefsek. Says Rabbi Yeruchim, Al Pi the Ramban, it's important to understand the yesod of davening. Davening is all about, like what the Ramban says, to be makir roimemis Hashem. Or like his Mayrach more, and he brings out, davening is all about Yiras Shamayim. As he brings out, it wouldn't be a kasha if in the middle of davening to sit down to learn a Perek Mesilas Yesharim, because Lamaisa, the whole davening is about connecting to the Rabbeinu Shalom to have Yiras Shamayim. That's why these are Maila, these are Inyan after davening to sit down with talis and tefillin to learn, because that's also, learning is also Yiras Shamayim. So first of all, the question is that it's a hefsek, b'chalal, Yotzros is a hefsek, davening is Yiras Shamayim, and the Yotzros is full of Yiras Shamayim, so therefore it's not a hefsek. But says Rabbi Yeruchim, Memela, that's why you could, learning is also Yiras Shamayim. You're learning to know the halachas. It's still to be closer to the Rabbeinu Shalom. It's all Yiras Shamayim. So mainly even this Shabbos Shkolim, the Yotzros of Shabbos Shkolim, that's halachas. It's all Yiras Shamayim. That's the answer. Just to conclude, even though we said many questions why not to say, one shouldn't think because of the questions to stop saying. If it's a shul, if your minig is to say, to go and to change it is a big sakana. Starting from the Bach, others as well. Also, the Bach says that there was somebody that made a big rash. I guess he went through the sugya of Yotzros with all the questions, and he came out, l'oira sugya, you're not supposed to say Yotzros. Says the Bach, v'lo yhoitzi shnasai. He was nifta within the year. If the minig is to say, to stop saying is a big sakana. The Peleyoyet says, hamavatal, somebody that's mavatal to say Yotzros, mesukim lamas chas v'shalom. In the Kollel Shiur Chaim, he brings from Scheiner that there was a town that there were no old people, and he says because that town used to say Yotzros and they stopped saying Yotzros. Sakana. I'm not going to end here. Not to Messiah. You have to Messiah b'davar tov. Lamaisa, if your minig is not to say, and you're davening in a shul that says, so there's a eitzah. Like the Torah gives already, the eitzah. The eitzah is not to make a macha, to take out, your whole table with Gemaras and Svarim, to say, Rabbi say, I don't say Yotzros. That's not the eitzah. Ad kedei kach, the Darkei Moshe, the Maril brings, the Darkei Moshe brings the Maril, that the Maril was koyes al elu habuchar, the Bachrim, they used to learn during Yotzros. What did the Torah do? The Torah was Yoshev v'doimim. He was quiet. If you're taka concerned of hefsek, you don't have to make a macha. You could just keep quiet. The Chassam Sofer held not to say machnise rachman by slichas. It's inkam makoyme, but I want to just bring out. Nobody knew about it mitzad in the shul. It's not like he changed it. He just was mayrach in the piyuta before. Throughout, not like he stopped. When they said Machnise Rachmem, he was quiet, stand like this to show everybody he didn't. Here it's a little harder by Yotzros because it's 10-15 minutes of Yotzros. You're going to be quiet, but still you can look through the Yotzros. If you're really concerned about hefsek is to say the Yotzros, but you can look through the Yotzros. You can see, what the Yotzros say. Learn through the Yotzros. And just to end with one halacha that comes out from the Yotzros, the Mishabura brings, Azoi, when a person makes Oisa Shalom, you go back by Chazar Sashatz, by Kedusha. However, says the Mishabura, Simikuf Chav Gimel Sivkat and Yud, that by Yotzros, you could go back already right by the beginning of Shemoneh Esrei. Have a wonderful Shabbos, a good Chodesh, and we should be Zoiche, the month, Mishenichnas Ad Marben B'Simcha, to have the true Simcha Amitis, the Bias Goyal Tzedek, and to be able to Makayim, the mitzvah of Machtas HaShekel. Have a wonderful Shabbos.